All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're getting into the real science behind mastering your own mind. And I'm not talking about some abstract idea or self-help hype. We're talking about the hard neuroscience that shows us how we can gain incredible control over our own thoughts, feelings, and actions.
We've all been told the same thing, right? That self-control is just about willpower, that you just have to grit your teeth and try harder. But what if that's not the whole picture? What if that's actually the least effective way to get what you want?
For the longest time, that brute force approach was pretty much all we had. But here's the thing. Recent breakthroughs in neuroscience have completely flipped that idea on its head. They've revealed a much smarter, much more effective way to take charge of your mind. So let's get into it.
Okay, first things first, we gotta look at the hardware. Because mind mastery isn't some fuzzy concept floating around in the air. Nope, it's a physical process that happens inside your skull. It has a real biological address. So when scientists talk about mind mastery, what do they actually mean? Well, here's the definition. It's the trainable ability to manage your attention, emotions, and impulses by using specific systems in your brain. And the key word there, the one I really want you to focus on, is trainable.
Think about it like this. There's kind of this little drama playing out in your brain all the time. You've got your prefrontal cortex, the PFC. That's the CEO. It's in charge of planning, focus, and telling you, hey, maybe we don't need that third slice of pizza. Then you've got the more primal parts, like your amygdala, which handle raw emotion and impulse. And really, great self-control just means the CEO is really, really good at its job.
For so long, the assumption was that our brains were pretty much set in stone by the time we reached adulthood. But it turns out, one of the single biggest discoveries in modern neuroscience proved that's just not true. Your brain is not fixed.
And that massive discovery is called neuroplasticity. It's this incredible ability your brain has to literally rewire itself based on what you do and what you experience. Every single time you practice focusing or you calm yourself down, you are physically changing the structure of your brain. So, mind mastery isn't just a mindset shift. We are talking about a biological upgrade.
So, okay, if we can actually change our brain's hardware through neuroplasticity, how do we do it? Well, that brings us to the software, the mental programs we can run to start taming all that inner noise and really take control. You know that feeling when your mind is just everywhere, jumping from one thought to the next? Well, scientists found a brain network responsible for that, called the default mode network, or DMN. It's kind of like your brain's screensaver. When you're not focused, it kicks in, and when it's overactive, that leads to overthinking, anxiety, and just general mind wandering. But when you can quiet it down, that's where you find clarity, focus, and control.
So, how do we quiet that DMN? One of the most powerful techniques is something called cognitive reframing. It's actually a pretty simple three-step process. First, you just notice an emotion. You acknowledge it. Then you consciously change the story you're telling yourself about what's happening. And when you do that, you literally weaken the emotional response. You're not bottling it up or ignoring it, you're changing it right at the source. And doing this over and over, well, that's you actively rewiring your brain.
And this gets to a huge misconception. We tend to think that emotional control means suppressing our feelings. But the science is crystal clear. That just doesn't work. True strength comes from awareness. Just the simple act of naming an emotion, saying to yourself, okay, I'm feeling angry right now, activates your prefrontal cortex, your CEO, and dials down the emotion's power. Calmly processing what you feel is always more powerful than trying to just push it away.
Okay, now let's zoom in even deeper to the chemical level. Because our ability to control our minds is massively influenced by the neurochemicals that act like the fuel and the brakes inside our brain.
Let's start with dopamine. Everyone calls it the pleasure molecule, right? Well, that's a massive oversimplification. Its main job isn't pleasure. Its job is to signal what's important, what's worth doing again. It's the chemical of motivation and habit building. So real mind mastery isn't about chasing cheap dopamine hits. It's about learning to consciously direct your dopamine system toward productive, long-term goals.
So while dopamine is steering you, your overall chemical state decides if you can even hold the wheel. When your nervous system is calm, the chemistry is just right, your prefrontal cortex, that rational CEO, is fully online and in command. This is your peak state for focus, for making good decisions, for controlling your impulses. But watch what happens when you get stressed. Stress hormones like cortisol flood your system, and they act like an off switch for your PFC. Your rational CEO gets taken offline, and when that happens, your primal, impulsive brain circuits take over. This is exactly why it feels almost impossible to stick to a diet or not snap at someone when you're super stressed. Your hardware is literally working against you. So, we've looked at the hardware, the software, and the chemistry. After all of that, what's the single most important takeaway from all this incredible science? Because look, this really, really matters. This isn't just some interesting mental exercise. When you develop these skills, the real-world benefits are huge. We're talking about better focus, learning things faster, being more emotionally stable, making better decisions. This is the foundation for real, long-term success in pretty much anything you want to do.
So if you remember one thing from all this, let it be this. True mind mastery is not about brute force. It's about smart regulation. It's about training your brain's systems for attention, for emotion, for habit, so that being in control stops feeling like a struggle and starts becoming your natural, default state. And there you have it, the real science of mastering your mind. The most amazing part of all this is that you can start today. You can start rewiring your brain right now. So the question isn't if you can do it. The question is, now that you know how it works, which part of your brain are you going to train first?